favorite cut here.
Yeah. And then this was a reshoot.
And now, from now on, we're like in a reshoot, which we reshot mainly because in the other scene, they're like kind of waking up, they're flipping burgers, they eat, they sit down.
It's all very casual.
They talk, and
no urgency.
And you don't felt any urgency anymore.
Right.
It's the urgency went out of the movie. So we like kind of decided to do very late into the game, very late.
Yeah, we were. It was really probably like 6 weeks before the release of the movie, 8 weeks before the release of the movie.
And it actually came out of one of the test screenings where somebody said, I sure wish we could have like kind of a scene where they immediately go out there again.
Right. It was just too, they were kind of talking about this, and it's like, hey, the kid's dying in the library, and you guys are having hamburgers and fries. It was just didn't quite work.
Yeah.
But I thought this worked really well, and I have to say the studio was very helpful and very, supportive of doing this. We all agreed.
Every movie will reshoot something. I mean, even movies which work very well. We reshot even later, like kind of 3 weeks before we
Independence Day.
Before we had to lock picture in Independence Day, or like had to kind of print master. We reshot something in like 3 days. It was quite more complicated than what we did here.
Sam may not have one more day.
All reshot, because now
I thought the snow matched really well.
Yeah.
It looked really, really great.
At one point, we had like a real big money problem because we had such a big.
We were used to shooting with such a big backdrop that we
like kind of here had to kind of trick it a little bit, try to shoot a little bit tighter.
There's Ulysses.
Yeah.
Pretty cue here. We haven't really talked a lot about the music, but
there's all the frozen
beautiful.
people we had like kind of before in the car, and other places we took out. Oh, now here come.
See,
handy.
We turned lemon into lemonade. We didn't use them in the other scene, but we were
that's the only
ingenious here.
That's the only head we made new. Remember?
Right.
Like of the.
And I was surprised how many people recognized it as Campbell, the cop from the library. I didn't think people were going to recognize it. I thought maybe we had obscured his face too much. This is a new scene that we shot.
Yeah. It's like one of my favorite scenes now because.
Well, it's got that uncomfortable moment where he's talking about maybe he didn't make it, and again, it works better with no words when he stops than it would have. This piece we used in the original.
Yeah, there was like actually a piece of dialogue which we had in the original scene.
Right.
We could like use here now. Scene, we like have the feeling that Jason doesn't believe the kid is still alive, and there's this very uncomfortable moment between them. Then Dennis, I think a great piece of acting.
His performance is great.
Yeah, really, where you see he has to keep going.
Silence right in here. His non-verbal acting here.
Also, Dash
the reaction.
Dash
he's
is so good.
So good. Here, just really, you can see that he wants to cry. You can feel that moment.
And there's Florida.
Yeah. That aren't flooded.
Sounds so easy when you like say the storm is breaking up, and then you have to kind of create.
This killed us. Also, there's no bad guy in this movie. Our bad guy is the weather, and all of a sudden, it just goes away. And we had a really hard time with this, trying to make sure that the audience didn't feel like, oh, and now it's over. Set up this
and you remember we
sense
shot
of urgency.
Like also something down in Europe, the
Eiffel Tower,
Eiffel Tower
that we didn't use,
and then we didn't use it because it was so much felt out of place.
Yeah, well, we were never.
And we had also like here this shot, which is coming
this
up,
back shot,
which was like so much more impressive. Also, again, shot on stage,
everything,
and blue screen, and it looks quite amazing.
The sky is a really beautiful.
Yeah.
Who did that sky?
That was like ILM.
Really, they did both of these shots,
yeah,
right?
Both of these shots.
Really, really. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Moment when
2 or 3 of my favorite shots
of
the movie. This one, and then the next, and then the following.
Yeah.
This really kind of great.
And there were a couple that we couldn't use because we couldn't get a couple of shots we had to take out.
Yeah.
One in particular that I really wish. This is my favorite. To me, this is the shot of the movie. It's just so says everything about what the movie is.
It's like a really
visually
kind of
and
cool
metaphorically.
angle, right?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I was like very pleased with that.
Oh, This is a great shot too.
Yeah. Which is like kind of strange. It's like a shot. You remember we were like kind of laboring and laboring.
Oh
and so
my
that
god!
doesn't
Well, we
look
weren't
like-
even sure we were gonna
Yeah,
get there
we
with
can
this
use it,
shot.
Yeah.
We cut. No, not
No,
this.
no, no,
the
not this
shot
shot.
after
This shot
the
is
shot
like-
after this. This is an amazing
Yeah,
shot too.
yeah.
I think this shot, the overhead of the Statue of Liberty, and the wave shot, is the shot that sort of that people really remember.
Yeah.
From
And this actually this shot we did twice too, because at the very beginning, like some
needed
other
it for the
company
trailer.
did it for the trailer, and then like ILM did the final. So no, I did the shot twice.
There's the shot. Then there was
Yeah.
a shot
There was
in
in between where we see
coming
them,
into
yeah,
New York,
coming- yeah.
which was a shame. We could never get that. We
Yeah.
just didn't have time. There
We
wasn't
ran out
enough.
of-
There wasn't enough time, Michael. There wasn't enough time. Senator Corleone, President Corleone.
Like at the 10 scene, we were like kind of know that he, they both have this like kind of feeling that he's not surviving. This moment really works, and before that, it really
It
didn't work.
It didn't. This is all inside. This
Now they have
shot.
hope. We
Now
had
this
also-
shot. This is all digital, right?
Yeah, it's all digital.
All digital.
All digital. But like, you remember we had also at one point like kind of smoke coming out.
Of the chimney.
Yeah, from a chimney.
This is also great because again, we remember the library scene.
And that's
and
in
that
real. That's
phenomenal set, and then we built.
We did
this
like
whole,
one shot.
I know. Well, we had
One shot.
but it was worth it. But we had
Yeah.
to build that whole
Yeah.
wooden thing to get everything down. Also, this is all we iced up this library.
Wondering how this could look, and I always like said, well, iced in like a broken refrigerator, and they like a test, and I never liked it, and then he said like, you mean like in Dr. Zhivago? And then I said, yes, like in Dr. Zhivago.
That's exactly
And
what
they
it was.
They did it in real.
Yeah.
They had no snow, so they blew endless water over this house.
So
and it
great.
became this ice palace.
Least favorite shot in the movie. He complained about this endlessly. The door handle just
The handle-
doesn't feel real.
Well, it was like this really, there was this really expensive set, and then there was this plastic
door handle.
door handle which was not really functional.
This
He had a
scene,
point there. I mean,
he
I
was
think
right,
he had a
but
point.
you know what? We sold it with sound. This scene we spent a lot of time working on.
Yeah.
Stop her eyes from opening
Yeah,
digitally. We delayed the
we-
opening of her eyes digitally,
Yeah.
just to get that moment where we could get the flashlight on him before she opened up
Yeah,
her eyes,
yeah.
which was a good idea. Sweet moment. I cried for the first 7 months at this scene, but then eventually my tears dried up and I couldn't. Could I no more?
I was nervous about that scene. I kind of asked David to cut it, remember? And then came to you and I said, like, the next day he had cut it. And I wanted to know if it works. And I kind of took you and, like, I think Jeffery or somebody else. We, like, kind of went there, we watched it, and we all had, like, tears in our
Oh,
eyes,
just
right?
really
And
powerful.
so, we were great, great, it works. I mean, sometimes you're really not sure
You
if
don't
certain
know.
things work. Because the instinct was first, a lot of people said, like, why is he not immediately rushing in? Why is he not rushing to his son? And
Well, it's such a dramatic moment. You
Well,
want to
and I
milk
kind of
it,
felt-
and it's also
yeah.
real. You after all that, it's almost like you're stunned. You can't move.
Mm-hmm.
I just received a shortwave radio transmission to New York.
Shot, the way it's lit, when we do the reverse.
Yeah.
Oh, in the wide shot actually.
Yeah,
The wide
yeah,
shot,
yeah.
which scene.
Yeah.
It's good news.
It's good news, Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's a nice moment.
working.
Yeah.
But it's probably the scene we labored the most.
Oh my god.
Right?
Well, this whole
But it's always like
we spent forever with the voiceover and how much, and we had more and we had less.
Yes.
This was the hardest, I think, part for us in the editing process. The last 3-4 minutes of the film.
And there were actually two things which I knew have to help us there. First of all, do one piece, of the speech, and then don't
And break.
continue,
Right.
and then come later back to the scene. Otherwise, it always felt too short. Whatever he said, it felt.
But also, what's great about it is that you have the voiceover, you have the president's speech, and rhythmically, then you kind of slam in with those helicopters, which really is incredibly. Here we go. Whoosh!
You like
Really
hear
fantastic.
nothing, and you like kind of now
That's a great shot
make
too.
make people aware of like a lot of time has kind of passed. He's now like kind of talking for 15 minutes already, and it reminds you again where you were.
You see, we got another
you
shot
don't
of that
hear
very
anything.
expensive set
Yeah,
in there,
exactly.
that little piece there.
Exactly, like for
No,
5
but
minutes.
that's right.
And now you kind of go back to
The heart.
to the heart, and now you only tell the story about that there are survivors.
Right.
All kinds of version
Oh
of
my
where
God.
in one version he even said the name. Remember?
Yeah, we got too specific.
Yeah, we got
and
too
and it was
specific.
too much Jack Saves the World.
Yeah,
People survived from New York and immediate
it's yeah.
What was nice is, we were all, you, me, Jeffrey, David. I mean, we kept thinking, that's great. How do we find that balance? And I think it took us really till the end.
Yeah,
And we almost, if we remember, we almost blew this because we had, at one point, hundreds of helicopters and thousands of survivors. And it was just, it was sort of totally antithetical to what the movie was about. Lost a couple of visual effect shots that we would have liked to have had in the film because we didn't have the time to finish them because we put the ending back the way it was supposed to be. I mean, I think we were fine. That one shot that's coming up really sells the whole thing of the level and how many survivors there are. This is all visual effects. It's amazing what can be done. This is a really nice mop-up, as Harold would say. The mop-up. So beautiful here. Here's that.
When
We had clapping.
we
At
had
one
that
point, which
cheering.
was too much because we were afraid that you wouldn't quite see that there were people on the
They were
roofs.
like kind of at one point you couldn't see the people
Exactly.
anymore. Purpose of the shot were that you have to see some people.
Yeah. The idea that we were able to, I think, leave the audience feeling uplifted at the end, in spite of the fact that we destroyed the entire Northern Hemisphere. And this is such a great moment here. This line feels so good at the end.
Totally
Sorry.
unrealistic, that shot, but
That's okay.
we had to do it anyway.
Real life is no excuse for bad drama.
Exactly.
It's a great shot of the earth. And here comes our 8-minute end title sequence. We can skip that, don't you think, Roland? We'll let that play without us.
It's the longest. The woman who like kind of had to kind of set the types.
Right.
It's the longest the most names she ever had in the end credits.
Well, also, it started out at 13 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was just so long, it was ridiculous, and we kind of sped it up, and we were worried it would be too fast, but 8 minutes later, I think everybody was perfectly happy to say goodnight.
Also, because we had so many units, we had like the El Paso unit, we had the New York.
Well, what did somebody say? We
LA
must have
unit.
employed the entire city of Montreal in this film. How many digital artists do you think worked on 1,000?
Yeah, at least.
I mean, it was just
Well, it's at least
unbelievable
in-
how many people there were working on this movie. All you have to do is sit for 8.5 minutes and watch the end credits, and you'll see.
And count, maybe where somebody wants to count,
How many names there are?
Yeah. I think
57, 58, 432.
I think we like already started too late.
I'm really proud of this movie.
Me too.
I really feel so good about it, and it was 2.5 years, and it was hard, and but it was worth it. It's just really nice to work on something, no matter how long you work on it, but to feel so good about what you've done, about what the movie was about, and the fact that I think it turned out the way we hoped it would.
Mm-hmm. It's sometimes strange. You start with an idea. I mean, I read this book called The Coming of the Global Superstorm, which is from Whitley Strieber and Art Bell, and it immediately hit me. This is a movie. It was like 4 years ago, or more than 4 years ago, and now like kind of seeing the movie finished, it's a strange feeling for me because that you read some book, and I kind of nearly needed 1 year to kind of acquire the rights because they had sold it like kind of to
that was complicated. It took a long time.
Lionsgate, but I have to say I'm happy that I got the rights, and I'm happy that I did the movie.
And now, after we've done this, we won't have to look at the movie again for a while. I don't mind taking a little break from watching this film.
Yeah. How many times did we saw it?
At least 1,000 times.
Yes, exactly. If the people would know how much work goes into a movie, they would watch movie with a different attitude.
Certainly the critics would.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly. Thank you.
Goodbye.
I'm David Brenner, I'm the editor of the film.
I'm Jeffrey Nachmanoff. I am the co-screenwriter.
I'm Ueli Steiger, the cinematographer.
And I am Barry Chusid, the production designer.
This is the logo. Already you can see that Roland is trying to do something visually interesting right away, making the sort of storm clouds appear over the Fox logo, which was a really, I think, cool idea. And it sort of established his visual sense right away of dark blue. Everybody was always like, make it darker, make it bluer. That was sort of the visual effects department's sort of mantra. And he tried it right away up there.
I think we had originally talked about freezing the 20th Century Fox logo, but
it looked cheesy, like we saw some stills. But this is an amazing shot right here. This is like, started off as a very, very simple computer graphic, you know, depicting a helicopter shot over the icebergs, and I think it just came out amazingly.
Yeah, they started on this stuff, the pre-visualization, literally a few weeks after we sold the script. And I came into Roland's office and they showed me this it looked like a video game, you know, going over the ice field.
Yeah, I cut with that video game shot for a long time. And this same iceberg right here comes through.
Is there warned?
I was always like, save that iceberg. It's nice to have a music change happen. Because I was using like Thin Red Line and this change happened there. And I was like, it's kind of dramatic. It's always nice to sort of use temp music to make these sort of really simple computer graphics feel real and dramatic. But
we were looking at that computer graphic thing for like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I remember it was so early that they developed it, and then it took so long before they finished it. I was waiting for a long time to see what it would look like.
Shot in the movie. It's a most extraordinary, actually, shot. And hopefully people don't notice, you guys, you know, that it is. But it's one of those shots that we couldn't do for real, and we had it go seamlessly over into a scene that we shot. A computer like that, you're always, I mean, I feel that the digital people always a bit carried away because you can't do this incredible camera move. You can bank, you can up and down and whatnot. I wanted it to look like as if it was shot from a normal helicopter with a gyrosphere. That's how we shoot it, to have no banking, to have the camera stay flat, to have a shot where you actually don't want to know who is shooting this, you know.
Like, did you guys conceptualize this in the script in early stages?
When I first came on board, Roland had already written a version of the script, and I took that and we talked a lot, and then I wrote a new script, but there were certain elements, particularly some visual elements, that always stayed from Roland's very first outline of it. And I think the idea of floating over a field of ice was always his initial idea.
Scenes were actually shot, and it was an elevated set, and with a 360 blue screen that we could, with a curtain rail that we could pull the blue screen around.
We're going to try and create our digital backing.
Yeah, I mean that was part of this idea when we were shooting it. We tried to actually get the color and do a digital backing, so not all the shots would have to be digital shots, blue screen shots. Like for example, this shot here, the sky could have been like a backdrop that we could put in, and we tried that. We even had printed up
a sample piece.
So we could do close-ups without. It was a printed drop actually. So in close-ups, they wouldn't all have to become digital shots. Of course, it miserably failed. It just didn't work. I mean, and I couldn't get myself locked into a lighting situation like that because they never could get that backdrop right. So we ended up doing it like one should do it. You do the photography first, and then you adapt the background you put into the photography, and I think it ended up working out really well.
Shot here, where do we cut to them knowing that it's happening? And we played with that for a long time. If you had it too late, they seemed kind of dumb because they could have heard the sounds. But yeah, the scene, a lot of editing went into the scene, a lot of choices, which we had to do really early in order to get the visual effects process started. This was one of the first scenes we took over. There used to be a shot right here from the point of view of the water. It was great. You saw this thing hit the water, but the splash was right on your face, and Roland said we're never going to be able to get it to work because close-up digital water is really hard to pay off. So we had to. Some of the choices in editing were about that. If we can't sell it, if we can't make it look real, Roland didn't want it in the movie. The camera thing that happens right here is he had this ice pick, and there's this whole decision about should we see the ice pick go in the ice and he shot it a million different ways, and I tried it, but it seemed best to just say, okay, he's did it, like, as an off-camera thing.
A little suspension of disbelief there with the ice pick.
Thing was that it looks real. You wanted to feel the cold. You wanted to feel the mists of the water on your face. You wanted to feel the international flavor. And it was always just make the sets feel real.
We shot a whole different little piece that was up above that was meant to sort of set up and explain some of the science, and at the end of the day we had to cut it out because it just dragged on too long. I think we tried putting it in, David, didn't we, once more at the very end?
And we tried cutting it up, but it sort of dragged on, and we really needed to get the story moving, and it was a good cause and effect to have Dennis's voice sort of come right away and tell you what's going on. But I know what you guys missed in it, what we all missed, was a sense that it's the human beings have caused these things to happen. So at the very end of the game, actually, Jeff, you wrote a line in here that we put in, which I think I'm really happy how it worked out.
Yeah, some of this dialogue actually, this is where I first got involved with Michael Molitor, who was our science advisor. When I was writing this scene, Roland and Mark came back to me and they said, well, what's real, what's not real? And I sort of culled from a lot of articles I'd read about the UN conferences on Kyoto and on climate change, and I sent off the scene actually to Michael, who was a professor at Harvard that I had known when I was an undergraduate there, and he sent me back all these notes, and I started integrating them into the scene and trying to make the scene play more and more as close as possible to what sort of the basic ideas are that have been going back and forth over this issue. And when I was really pleased when the movie was shown in Germany. One of the climate scientists, who is actually sort of this guy in real life, he's the one that has given this talk about abrupt climate change to the UN Commission, said he saw this scene and he said it felt exactly like what he had experienced when he was at the climate conference in Brazil last year.
Wow, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It should have looked really realistic, and I mean the whole idea is that it shouldn't be too stylized. And so I didn't use any filtration. The film is shot in Super 35, which is a format that is then blown up. You produce a CinemaScope negative, so it's actually a CinemaScope movie, but it's not shot anamorphic, it's shot with flat lenses. Because you use a little bit less negative with that process as well, I wanted it to, I didn't use any filtration, no diffusion. I shot it all with one stock. I shot it all with the 200 ASA film, Vision 200, because it is a very sharp film. I never went to the 500 stock because I wanted it to be very sharp and hold up. I had experience with that film as well. It holds up very well if you digitize it. So, but I shot only one film stock on this movie. Day, exterior, night interior, everything was Vision 200. Needed some more light, especially later on when we see in the storm sequences on the stages. We had a lot of light.
Climate research title. We sort of played with taking them in and out about these subtitles. How many places should we sort of mark? And initially, when we screened the film, people were confused in the first act about where are we, because we're jumping all over from Washington, Antarctica, Tokyo, Scotland. And we did one screening of the movie, remember, Jeffrey, where we had, like, throughout the whole movie, we put, like, cards about days
Titles
and
everywhere.
times.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
a
too
nightmare, it
much.
was stupid. But we ended up doing it just in the first reel, pretty much, which sort of sets you up that all these scenes together are basically, in a way, sort of an extended prologue about these are different things that are happening all around the world.
Yeah, it out that 4311. You also pick all sorts of numbers and things from your life. Like that's my that's the address of the house I grew up in, 4311.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and of course the dog is my dog, Buddha.
There was once a version of the shot which had a huge flock of birds crossing over. Roland originally had mentioned the bird motif, which we pick up later in New York, starting out here. But it was sort of too much, and we had to sort of get through the scene. You know, sort of now we're understanding, we're putting the characters together. This is the guy we saw in India. He's here, and we're realizing that he sort of was like working with them. He's their boss, and it was actually tricky when to bring this guy into the scene.
And after I was incredibly excited to see at
great.
home. Okay, the Tokyo sequence, in and out.
More than any other scene. Originally, this scene involved a character that was a pretty main character in the first half of the movie, a Wall Street stockbroker named Gary.
And you'll see Taka, the guy at the bar, takes a phone call. Originally, he was talking to the broker. And at the very last minute, Jeffrey had this idea to make it so he's talking to his girlfriend or wife, because we were struggling. How do we keep this scene? We really wanted, first of all, for the international aspect, to show things happening all around the world. And without this scene, nothing sort of exciting happened between Antarctica and about 10 minutes later when the kids are in the airplane, which you'll see. And we really needed this beat. And I think I'm so happy it's in, because it's incredibly well shot. I mean, this is on a set. Can you believe it?
Throwing ice from the rafters. That's what it basically was. It was enhanced. In certain shots have they put in more digital hail. I've lost real ice being thrown down. We had this fake hail, which just looked silly. They built because it's dangerous. These ice blocks.
But they tried a variety of different types of hail, and the problem was that you had, as Ueli says, the real hail was dangerous. But everything we tried, just it looked fake. And this is
in Montreal. The exterior was, of course, in Washington. It's one of the few things where we shot a few things in Washington, D.C. for practical location. It was really snowing outside here. You actually
yes, as you can see through the window.
It was not the only not fake snow in this movie happened actually in this scene.
To introduce Jake's character was actually the first scene I wrote after Roland brought me on, which we ended up having to cut, which was they're trying to study for the quiz bowl or the academic decathlon, and Jake's character keeps trying to get high, and the other character is saying to him, "What are you going to do? You're going to study or you're going to get high? You can't do both." And he's like, "I can do both. Test me. Ask me questions."
Oh, I remember. I liked that.
Yeah, I was one of my favorite scenes. And then Dennis's character comes home and says to him, he's mad at him for actually having been smoking pot. And the kid says, "Hey, it's my body. I can do whatever I want." He says, "Well, it's you're buying pot supports drug dealers. That's really bad." And Jake's character said, "I didn't buy it," and I was very disappointed that we couldn't do that scene.
Here.
Yeah, because we had to
didn't know
establish that it was the vice president. Vice president, of course, who has no relationship to the real vice president.
This used to be the second scene in this place, actually. The first time, remember, we used to see Jason watching TV, and it was like, actually, there was like, Tokyo
funny,
was
yeah.
on it, and then Dennis comes back.
It gives him some, yeah.
That was when the first act was endlessly long.
It is a process shot.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, very proud of this because it's one of the best looking car process shots I've ever done. We shot in front of green screen. We put the water in there, that's real. And then we shot in Washington, D.C., the plates for real. I shot those as well. And then they were put in. Again, what happened here in the post-production, I actually had to work on this quite a bit at E-Film, where we did the digital intermediate, because the plates were a little bit too dark. One of the things that often happens in visual effects shots that, in reality, the outside has to be overexposed. It has to be bright. Otherwise, you don't believe it doesn't look real. And they made it sort of the same brightness. Sometimes the face of the actor was like brighter than the outside. So we actually had to pull a mat and fix that. But it turned out really brilliant.
Thought that went in and out a little bit, but then
This was added very late, by the way, right before we. It was, I think, a week before we were going to go and sell the script. I'm pretty sure we didn't have the space station in.
Really?
And Roland and I talked about it.
I'm so glad you did, because it really gives you a global perspective, and it's almost like these guys are the chorus in a way. It's like, I mean, there are only 3 scenes in the film with them, or 4, but it's really, really strings it together and enables us to see the progression of the storm.
On stage again, in a fake airplane.
But what Ueli did as well is that the crane is on a separate platform, and the plane's on a separate gimbal,
right.
So they move independent.
Yes.
So then you have basically like 3 pieces.
We had a 50-foot techno crane, which is a telescoping arm, which we carried for the whole movie, which made it all these, I think, these smooth movements possible. It really gave us the possibility to create style. I mean, I always believe that a movie finds its own style, and you have the equipment, and it helps you to make it kind of smooth. And the Technocrane is a great tool which I have since Godzilla always use. You move the camera a lot quicker with it. It's not the name crane is kind of the wrong name. It's actually a moving camera platform. It can crane as well, but it's a telescoping arm with a very, very complex thing. Gimbaled set with the crane. We can do all the camera moves inside without having tracked on the dolly. Here was a specialty shot where we put the camera on the trolley, but everything else is, you can really see the people shaking. This is a really hefty ride. I mean, the effects people built this gimbal. I mean, it was like in the end of the plane, there were all stunt people because you could. I mean, it was harsh. It went like up nearly. Yeah, it was 180 degrees up, and it was like, and it was shake. People flying out of the chairs. It was actually really real. Not trying, and on the crane, he had like he's a very athletic guy. He felt he had like muscle cramps for days. And we did some of the second unit stuff in the plane. Anna Förster was the DP for that, and Gary Camp was a Steadicam and operator for the B camera for the second unit. They were like, got a good workout.
Process, and then David, Roland, and Mark and I rewrote through the whole editing process. The only scenes that really fundamentally never changed were these ones in Scotland. And I think that's because from the very first draft, and I think it's because they were self-contained and they seemed to work, and there was no real reason to mess with them very much.
Well, the one after this, we added a lot of new dialogue, actually. Here's one of my favorite scene transitions. Sort of, it was really a sound thing. Let's make the sort of beats grow louder and then smash cut to the.
That was a great. I remember that was one of the first things I saw. You cut it together while we were up in Montreal while we were still shooting, and it was not something in the script. It was an idea of David's to do, and I was like, wow, that's when it really works, is when you get new ideas that fit with what's already on the page.
We closed down, Lower Manhattan for this. We put our own traffic, of course, and everything, and we had two scenes we shot in one morning here. And then it's another shot which just the birds have been put in. This here's another one from a Trump Tower, one of the Trump Towers, with a beautiful pan.
Stage. That's not really the Bronx, dude.
Here's our first shot of digital wolves, which I think this shot works really well. Actually, with the idea about having the lead wolf at the very end sort of come up into frame, which I thought was a really good out of the scene. It always gets a jump, and it made a terrific cut to this guy's close-up up here.
Elastic decathlon.
And then we were also in a place where they build train cars, where we did all our tank work.
We had the biggest rigs I've ever seen in my life in those huge sets.
Cut, by the way. It was actually Peter Elliott, one of the additional editors' idea to use this Culture Club song, but it makes such a fun kind of like scene change on Jake's goofy expression, and it gives the scene.
It's a good transition, yeah.
Here is a practical location as well.
Yeah, it's one we built out.
I mean, with practical location, I mean for, of course, sort of an empty room, because you take everything else and then Barry and his guys make it look what it should look like.
Remember his, he like had this goofy name thing that said like, I am Yoda, and I think there's a shot where you can see Yoda on Sam's thing, and it's like...
That's better. That we had a whole bunch of dialogue about it that was unnecessary. Right. A lot of the times when you're writing a scene, you write all sorts of things trying to sort of search for the scene and search for the characters, and once you start putting it together, this is why it's a film instead of a book or something. You can still say it says Yoda on his name tag. You find you don't need them because it's all accomplished with what the actors do with their faces and the mood and it's not needed. So we ended up cutting out a lot of those little dialogue jokes.
Very straightforward movie making here. That's very traditional storytelling, and that's what I love in this movie as well. I think we shot this movie in a very traditional way. I didn't want anything fashionable or hip in this movie. It was all about telling the story, and you can actually see it as well. I mean, I think it has a great rhythm. We move the camera a lot in this film and very controlled. I hope nobody notices that. It's something one shouldn't notice.
What do you mean? Because it took him so long to walk across the hallway. I remember that. We jumped him a little bit.
And it cuts to this moving camera on the other side of the world in Scotland.
There are no forecasts capable.
Works out really well because it gives it like this, a real kind of a, because it's about something very important is happening here. I mean, you're just about to hear something really important plot point, and I think it's great to be able, with camera moves, to create a tension. I mean, now the first big if-laden sequence in the movie starts, and I think we're sort of really, we have been, as an audience, brought to the point where you're sort of ready for it. Real location, just west of downtown.
The trickiest sequence of scenes to edit. There are so many different characters. These Bob and Tina here who work in the weather station, Tommy who we just saw on TV, and the deal is that none of these are main characters that we'll see later, but they all sort of play a role in this little sort of sequence. Yeah. And it was always tricky in the editing to try to get it to be not too long so that we don't get lost from our main characters, but not too short so that this scene doesn't have the weight that it should. And there was a couple passes where we had cut this down too much, and Roland said, you know what, we have to go back, we have to look at some of these characters, and we have to put them back because they give the weight and the scope that this sequence needs.
That scene there, that little teeny piece there, we went down to Dockweiler Beach at it's 5 a.m. to shoot that. We had these giant cranes throwing shaved ice at the actors, and we had all these extras. It was a huge production, and that's all.
2 shots.
Yeah, it's this little piece. Movie.
TV reports really late in the game keep changing them.
This one, he walks out the door that's at the Griffith Park Observatory, and it was one of the first days of shooting action. I remember we had this helicopter hovering down super low over the trees to make them shake and to give us the wind.
Long Steadicam shot, very long. Another thing that you don't see that often in these films, and it's like weird. A whole scene we shot in one take. We go from a real exterior from this corridor, follow the actors all the way into connecting our other big set of the main room.
That's the thing about working with Roland and Ueli, is that you end up building and dressing a lot of continuous spaces because of the way they like to shoot as well.
I think it's awesome. So you really have a feeling where you're at, because you actually physically came from the exterior of this building, from the hallway of the building into this big room.
Yeah, so you immediately know geographically where you stand. Yeah. Huge cheers in New York.
Blowing up the Hollywood sign.
Huge cheers.
Another of these Los Angeles shoots here were very amazing. We had this huge Sikorsky helicopter hovering over the scene where the guy gets out of the Porsche to make the wind. Produced for the real photography, we needed wind. But the only way to do it here is since we were actually panning around a lot, we didn't have wind machines. We had actually have a big helicopter hovering. It was loaded with as much sand as possible to have as much downdrift as possible. And it was blowing everything away. It was really cool.
David Brenner did, which was, I think, a great solution to a problem that we always had structurally in the script, is you have this whole sequence in LA and none of our main characters are there. And, we set up these little characters that get killed or whatever happens to them just so we have someone to watch. But it always felt, at least to me, like we were going to another movie when we went to LA. And what you did, David, at some point, I don't remember one of the 5,000 cuts of the movie, and it really felt like it suddenly worked for me, was you intercut all of the characters back in New York and in Washington watching it. That is, Dennis watching and Jake watching this. And that really made it suddenly made it feel like it was, they were connected more. I suggest as a joke. The first time I don't know, it was one of the early drafts I sent it to Mark and Roland, and we all three were sitting down, and I think I had the guy being sucked up into the air, and holding onto his microphone and then being pulled away, and they said, we want something bigger, and I said, what, you want him to be crushed by the Angeline sign or something? And both Mark and Roland immediately said, yes, that's exactly what you want. I'm like, I was kidding, guys.
The scene is so loud, and finally it quiets down, and this is the suspense here.
Very eerie.
You can hear the little tinny sort of soccer game coming from his headphones, and every little spark.
Outside we had just to make that happen. This was on a stage, of course. Down. Effect shot. The detail, the stuff that's still falling together with the music, very musical. That last piece of that dropping there. I think it's awesome. But it's a one-camera show. We hardly ever use two cameras on this movie, on any movie. I mean, it's not a good idea to use two cameras. I think if an action film, it's a different thing, or if you blow something up, you put as many cameras as you have on it. But for traditional, scenes, we shoot it always with one camera only.
Excuse me, you guys. I'm really.
I've always wondered how people think, the movie is so sort of like overtly political, because I think of taking like little satirical potshots at the administration as being sort of par for the course for any major movie being released. Whatever administration's in power at the time you make the film, you're going to make fun of it. But I think right now people are highly sensitive.
Listen up, everybody.
Here, when I was doing the research, I actually flew to Washington D.C. and went to the National Weather Center at NOAA and sat in on one of they have a daily meeting where they show they do what they call their grid models, and they compare each model, how it performed versus what really happened with the weather. And that idea, as I was sitting in the back of the room, made me think that would be useful to have like a big scene where all the scientists sort of get together and compare their notes, and then Dennis obviously has to come up with the answer.
We've already checked.
At the beginning, we didn't know whether we would use this room because it was actually there. It was the hull of this room was there. It's part of that building, which is so amazing. As a military building, like this is like in a science fiction movie or something. They have this big room with all these projectors behind walls and stuff, and it was like, wow, this is like the real thing. And then, of course, Barry changing completely around, but the actual room was there. The idea came when we scouted that we could connect the real exterior of the hallways really to this room, because you couldn't. We were discussing the building this thing on a stage for a while.
And it just and that's also just the way Roland and Ueli work. It's very organic in that respect. It's sort of like let's see what we can find, and then come back with, hey, here's an idea. What do you guys think of this?
And it worked actually really good. I mean, I had my gaffer, built in. All the lights had to be built into the set because we were planning to shoot like really 360s in this. So that's why I had these very heavy top lights, and we put power cans up on top and special very narrow beams. And then on the day, just brought in some fill from the floor. Again, this is the real corridor, and I think it's great that we move through this corridor. Again, a whole scene. One setup. There's no coverage. We decided on this while we were doing it. We actually did not shoot any coverage because it worked so well. And we set it up like that, and you rehearse it like that, and you block it like that. And then you can actually spend some time to get it right, and you still save time.
It come earlier at one point.
Yeah, this scene moved all over the place.
Particular building is actually in the same military complex that we actually just built out, because we used it as like sort of a back lot, and just built out all these spaces so we could actually, as a company, could park ourselves there, be there for a week or two, and shoot all this stuff.
This was a different building in the same complex, and it was actually it's a real hospital that wasn't used anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is in the same complex. This was a bit difficult for me because we couldn't really see out the windows. We had I just had to close the blinds, basically. And, we shot day and night there and had to shoot night during the day. So we had to tent for the night sequences. It was not very easy.
Literally about to get on a plane to go back to LA, and Roland said to me, I had about an hour, and he said, Jeffrey, I want to have some sort of like little flirtation between Dash and Tamlin. I'm like, what? I mean, this is not in the script. It's nowhere. And he's like, I have this idea that they should like each other, or that he should like her. He said, write a little scene. I'm like, where? And he's like, I don't know. Just think of something. And I literally went to the trailer and wrote this scene in about 20 minutes and brought it back to him on the back of a piece of paper. And he liked it. He and Mark liked it, and they shot it, that afternoon.
It's cool. It always draws people into the character. It's nice at this point to stop for some character moments, and it makes people really like Dash, and it makes people really like Frank as well, I think. Kind of moment right here.
That time scale isn't in months.
In weeks.
Yeah. Completely different reason or sort of set of events that led them to leave New York. The kids originally went to the Natural History Museum, and they got caught there when the flooding started. But Roland quite rightly felt that it was too abrupt, and he wanted it to build more, sort of have more events leading up to it. The only problem was we'd already shot that museum scene, and we were about a third of the way through the entire movie. So we created this other sequence, which was that the kids would end up with being forced from the school by flooding, and then they would go to JD's apartment.
Got a place to stay.
It was all shot in a grocery store.
Same day we shot India.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, a lot of the video footage was actually shot, by Ueli.
Just on the side.
On the side.
Shot. This is this one shot that follows all. The actors are so terrific. And I love the way it slowly focuses on a two-shot right there. It's just, the way Ueli did that is so subtle and such a nice move.
Roland always likes to keep the characters moving. He would often say to me, whenever I wrote a scene and they were sitting at a table or something, he'd say, "That's fine, now set it in a hallway," or going to the car, or, whatever. He always wanted to keep characters moving around so he could shoot it in a dynamic way. And you see it here, how he stages this interaction. He's so good at moving the camera around to keep you, interested, but you don't even realize it.
Format. If you, I think, use it right, you don't need to go so tight. You can actually play 2 shots and 3 shots through a whole scene. And I hate it if a film goes, uses all these long lenses and goes everything so tight. I feel really frustrated because I don't see where we're at. I think that the sets are part of the character, and I want to see the sets. I want to see where we are. That's why I love it that we could shoot this film sometimes not cover and have like 3 people in a frame, and not having to get into a tight close-up.
Piece we built on stage.
Yeah, in the
No
big
corner.
Snowland.
And Snowland.
It was one of the biggest stages in the world. It's like the second biggest stage in the world in Montreal, where we had our Snowland, where a lot of the snowstorm sequences were shot. It was Barry's nightmare because you had to flip sets overnight constantly. I've never seen so many people working on a movie overnight. Sometimes just to get like a set in another hour. It's unbelievable.
And oftentimes we would be if you're shooting one way, we would be striking in the other direction.
And overnight, put a new set, and we came back. We are at the same place, onto the same lighting rig. I had, for me, it was very easy. We had the same light. I switched the lights on. It was a new set.
Enough tea and biscuits here are terrific. The way they kind of indicate that there's a certain amount of nervousness about their future, and they know that they're in trouble.
Yeah,
but
that's terrific.
they put on this sort of stiff upper lip, and even Ian's look at the end here.
These scenes used to not really be together, and since they're talking about the Royal Air Force coming to rescue the royal family, we thought it was much more cause and effect to keep them together. And a lot of choices like that were made in the editing, where I think when you write the script, it's easier to intercut things to different stories, and when you look at it together, you want to sometimes stick with people's stories for more than one scene. Otherwise, it feels sort of too choppy.
Yeah, overall, I would say those were the biggest changes that were made in editing from the script, as things were moved closer together.
Right.
Stories were kept tighter together than they were in the script, where you bounced around a little bit more.
Here, when they look down and they see frozen bodies inside the car, the problem was it took so long that by the time the ice starts to freeze up and these things start to fall, it was too long, and people were like, wait a minute, they're entering the center of the supercell. Why does it take so long for it to have the effect?
Yeah, also the frozen people, I always thought the frozen people looked fake in the car, and that's I argued to get them out.
This scene was a really tough sound job, and we really struggled with, we always had music in the scene, and it was fighting with the sound of the dialogue, of the impacts of the ice sort of like cracking up, of the rotor stopping. And finally, late in the game, we said, wait a minute, let's take out the whole cue. And suddenly the sound had time to work, and the effects, and it was sometimes a good change to do that, because we realized we had music on every action scene. This is the only one. Here we bring it back.
This part of the scene, originally, he used to get out and take several steps and then freeze. And I think it was after one of the screenings, I'm not sure when, Dave, we sat down, I said, Roland, how can he walk if it's supposed to be so cold out there?
And people also said, well, there's a big thing with his hands on the door, and if it's so cold, how can his hands leave the door so easily? And I remember we had several comments about that. I think whether we needed to explain after we saw the helicopters freeze, but I think that you do. I'm really glad we left that a piece of information about the temperature, because later we found out that you need all the support to make people understand the super freeze at the end of the movie, which was always a tricky thing.
This is a scene we also I know it's not quite here, but remember David had a lot of conversations about how how to express some of this information to the audience in a way that was not too confusing, because we had sort of multiple things we're trying to do, some of which are...
Okay, let's gonna continue to the timing. Okay, other part coming soon.